What if I told you that tonight, before you fall asleep, you could say something so short, so simple, that it quietly rewires the spiritual direction of your life? Not a long prayer. Not a ritual that takes hours. Just a few seconds. 3 words. And yet, these words have carried kings through danger, lifted people out of financial collapse, protected souls in the darkest nights, and opened doors that logic said would never open. Most people never learn this, not because it's hidden, but because it's almost too simple to believe. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may change how you sleep and how you wake up, forever. Human nature often rejects simple solutions. We assume that if something truly works, it must be complicated, exhausting, or painful. That mindset causes people to overlook the most powerful spiritual tools. These 3 words don't impress the ego. They don't feel dramatic. But they work at a level deeper than emotion, at the level of surrender. When spoken with intention at the right moment, they activate something ancient and precise. Something rooted in scripture, not superstition. And once you understand when and why these words work, you'll realize why people who carry faith still struggle, while others quietly experience breakthroughs no one can explain. Many years ago, when I was still a student immersed in Torah study, something happened that permanently changed how I understood faith. One morning, our teacher, an elderly rabbi known for strength and discipline, walked into class with red, swollen eyes. He had been crying all night. That alone shocked us. When we asked what happened, he told us calmly that everything he had built over decades was gone. His savings. His investments. A major business deal collapsed overnight. Years of effort disappeared in a single day. We sat in silence, unsure how someone survives a blow like that. Then something unforgettable happened. He smiled. Not a forced smile. A genuine one. And he said, "Last night, before I slept, I said 3 words. When I woke up, I knew the door that had closed was already opening." He admitted he didn't know how, or when, or through whom. But he knew, with certainty, that something had shifted. 3 weeks later, an opportunity arrived from a direction none of us could have predicted. It didn't just replace what he lost. It surpassed it. That moment planted a question in my soul that never left. What were those words? To understand the power of these words, you must first understand the night. Most people see nighttime as nothing more than the end of the day. But in Jewish wisdom, night is not an absence, it's a doorway. Scripture and the Talmud teach that while the body rests, the soul ascends. It returns to its source. That means sleep is not passive. It's active. You are not just shutting down, you are sending something upward. And whatever state your soul leaves in is what it carries before the Creator. This makes your final thoughts before sleep incredibly important. Here's the part most people never consider. Your soul doesn't travel empty-handed. It carries the emotional and spiritual imprint you leave it with. Fear. Trust. Gratitude. Anxiety. Surrender. That imprint becomes your soul's message. If you fall asleep reviewing problems, reliving wounds, calculating losses, your soul ascends carrying weight and resistance. And it returns with the same energy reinforced. That's why people feel stuck for years despite praying daily. They pray during the day, but surrender the night to worry. And the night is when the deepest work happens. Most people end their day in self-evaluation. They replay conversations. They relive regrets. They worry about bills. They question timing. They ask, why hasn't this changed yet? Then they fall asleep inside the problem. That creates a cycle. Morning comes, but nothing feels lighter. The same burden greets them. Not because God ignored them, but because they unknowingly reinforced the same spiritual signal night after night. This isn't punishment. It's mechanics. Once you understand that, everything shifts. Because you can change the signal you send, starting tonight. The key comes from King David, a man who understood darkness, danger, and surrender better than most. In Psalm 31, David writes, "Into your hand I commit my spirit." In Hebrew, Bayeka Afkid. These were not poetic words written in comfort. David spoke them while hunted, threatened, and uncertain. No army. No security. No guarantees. And yet, these were his final words before sleep. Not panic. Not strategy. Surrender. These words are not passive. They are a declaration that places authority back where it belongs. These words did not belong to David alone. For thousands of years, righteous souls have used this verse before sleep. The Talmud describes it as a practice of protection, trust, and alignment. It is connected to divine guarding during vulnerable hours and to spiritual gates that open specifically at night. That's why these words are recited at life's edges, before sleep, before danger, before surrender. They are not magic. They are alignment. When spoken sincerely, they tell heaven, I release control. I trust you with what I cannot carry. Years later, a man came to me during a prolonged financial crisis. He had prayed, given charity, worked harder. Nothing moved. He felt abandoned. I asked him one question, what do you say before sleep? He told me he recited sacred prayers, but then lay awake worrying until exhaustion took over. That explained everything. Prayer spoke of belief. Worry spoke louder. I asked him to add one thing, just one sentence spoken out loud before sleep. Not whispered. Declared. Even if he didn't feel it. Faith, I told him, is often spoken before it is felt. He was skeptical, and understandably so. Pain makes simplicity feel suspicious. But he committed. Every night, before closing his eyes, he said those words with intention. 6 weeks later, he called in tears, not of relief, but shock. A contact from years earlier reached out unexpectedly with an opportunity that reversed his situation within months. He didn't suddenly become more deserving. He became more surrendered. That's the distinction. God does not wait for perfect confidence. He responds to invitation. And surrender is the clearest invitation there is. Jewish wisdom teaches that a person is body and soul in constant dialogue. At night, the soul ascends. But where it goes and what it receives depends on what it carries upward. When you surrender consciously, you are giving permission for divine involvement. God does not override free will, even to help. But when you say, into your hand I commit my spirit, you step aside. You stop micromanaging outcomes. That is when higher orchestration becomes possible. Not because you forced anything, but because you finally stopped blocking it. Kabbalah explains this through a concept called Rishimu, the spiritual impression. The final conscious act before sleep leaves an imprint on the soul. That imprint determines access. Fear closes. Trust opens. That's why Proverbs says, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will straighten your paths. All your ways includes the way you enter the night. This is not symbolic. It's functional. The universe responds to alignment. When you end your day in surrender, your night works differently, and eventually, so do your days. Here's how to do it. Tonight, create 1 minute of silence. No phone. No noise. Sit or lie down intentionally. This matters. Say the words out loud, into your hand, I commit my spirit. If you can, say it in Hebrew as well. Repeat it 3 times. Not for superstition, but to deepen intention. The first time, say it clearly. The second time, feel it. The third time, imagine handing everything you're carrying into God's hands. Open your palms. Release. Say nothing else. Let sleep come. One night can bring relief. But consistency brings transformation. Within days, people notice they wake differently. Not because everything is solved, but because something inside is lighter. Over weeks, patterns shift. Conversations happen. Doors open. Situations rearrange themselves without strain. This is not coincidence. It's alignment. When you stop gripping the night with fear, you wake into mornings that carry new possibilities. The Torah speaks of protection for those who surrender before sleep. Not superstition, structure. This is how spiritual systems are designed to function. If part of you doubts, that's okay. Doubt does not disqualify you. David himself spoke these words while afraid. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's the decision not to let fear speak last. You don't need to feel calm. You need to choose surrender. God measures faith not by emotional intensity, but by courage. Courage to release control. Courage to trust in the dark. Say the words anyway. Especially if you feel undeserving. Especially if you're tired. Especially if you've tried everything else. These 3 words have traveled through exile, poverty, persecution, and loss. Generation after generation whispered them into the dark. Not because life was easy, but because surrender was necessary. God responded then, and He responds now. Not always how people expect. Not always on human timelines. But always with precision. When you invite God into your night, He reshapes your path. Doors begin to open, not forced, not rushed, but right on time. Before this ends, make one decision. Just tonight. Say these words before sleep. No promises beyond that. Just tonight. Then tomorrow, do it again. Trust grows by repetition. Faith deepens in darkness. Into His hand, not your plans, not your fear, you place your spirit. And rest. Because the one who watches over you never sleeps, never slumbers, and never stops working on your behalf. Say the words tonight. And let the night begin to work for you.